As soon as Jungkook's name is mentioned in the fashion world, there is a strange vibe that is immediately felt not only among fans, but also at the meeting tables of big brands, in the newsrooms of fashion magazines, to behind the scenes of world-class design houses. Because, for the first time in modern history, an Asian artist is not just the face of a campaign, but a reference to the direction of the global fashion industry. Yes, it sounds like an exaggeration, but the numbers, the data, and the impact on the ground all lead to one surprising conclusion. Jungkook is not just another fashion influencer, he shifts the orbit of the so-called trend itself. This is where the story becomes interesting, because the Jungkook effect is not built in the traditional way, such as massive endorsements or cooperation full of scandals. He never tried to be a style icon. It is precisely by not trying that he creates the greatest effect. And this is what makes fashion analysts puzzled. How can someone who is so quiet and tends to be low profile be able to hold invisible control over dress culture around the world? A question that has finally led many experts to delve into layer after layer of the phenomenon called Jungkook effect. If you notice, since Jungkook officially became Calvin Klein's global ambassador, the fashion industry seems to have rediscovered the definition of sexy. Previously, sexy was defined as something aggressive, glamorous, and exaggerated. But through Jungkook, the word turned into natural, effortless, and real. The clothes he wore seemed simple: a white t-shirt, denim, black pants, a leather jacket, but as soon as he put them on, his visual and emotional value changed completely. Not because it is expensive, but because of the way it is present in the clothes. And that's where the key is. Fashion experts refer to this phenomenon as emotive styling, the ability of a person to change the perception of a style only through his personal energy. Jungkook doesn't wear a shirt, he lives the shirt. The result? Every time he appears in a new photo shoot or campaign, sales of similar items go up by 400% in the first 24 hours. Vogue business magazine called Jungkook a walking mood board for modern masculinity. However, what is most surprising is not the commercial effect, but the ideological effect. The fashion world for decades has been dominated by Western images models with characteristic European features, a style that leads to exclusivity, and the concept of luxury that often moves away from everyday life. But through Jungkook, a new paradigm emerged: relatable luxury. It brings a sense of warmth and closeness in a world that is usually cold and rigid. In each photo shoot, her facial expressions are rarely far-fetched. No exaggerated smiles, no poses that are forcing cool. But that's exactly where the charm is: rare visual honesty. Photographers who have worked with him say that Jungkook has a unique ability to make the camera believe. He doesn't just appear in front of the lens, he communicates with it. When you photograph Jungkook, says one of CK's senior photographers, you're not just capturing someone's face, you capture the story. The story, oddly enough, is different for everyone. In the eyes of young fans, Jungkook is a symbol of free expression. In the eyes of the designers, he representation minimalism meets emotion. In the eyes of brand analysts, he's an asset whose value continues to rise even without additional campaigns. And in the eyes of its competitors, it's a scary new standard. Because how can you compete with someone who is influencing trends without trying to do it? Even some big brands that have never worn Asian stars are now starting to look for models with an aura like Jungkook. It's crazy because it's not just the clothes that are followed, but the vibe. Pop culture researchers in Seoul and New York even call it the Jungkook phenomenon, a concept in which the style of dress is no longer determined by market trends, but by personal resonance. And if you look deeper, that influence doesn't stop at commercial fashion. It permeates the way people express themselves on a daily basis. On social media, the trends of quiet confidence and soft masculinity that were initially considered niche are now becoming mainstream. Jungkook indirectly opens up space for men to appear soft without losing strength. He showed that elegance can coexist with courage. In a fashion world that is often caught between two extremes, too macho or too experimental, Jungkook comes in the middle as a balance. And that's why he's so influential, because he doesn't impose new definitions, but makes room for everyone to find their own style. Paris-based fashion expert Marlene Duray called it a visual empathy revolution. Jungkook doesn't just bring an Asian face to global fashion, he brings a sensitivity to Eastern culture that has been overlooked. He combines typical Korean simplicity with elegant sensuality. It's not noisy, but it leaves a deep impression, he said in an interview with Le Monde Mode. Interestingly, this phenomenon then has an impact on design trends. Many designers are now starting to tone down their visuals, less effect, more emotion. Even major campaigns such as Prada and Gucci are now promoting intimate nuances, not showing off luxury. A paradigm shift that indirectly can be traced back to Jungkook's influence in the global visual space. However, not all parties are ready to recognize this power. Some conservative observers in the Western fashion industry still refuse to attribute the change of direction to a K-pop artist. They said, "It's just coincidence." But the data says otherwise. Every time Jungkook appears in a Calvin Klein campaign, his fashion keywords penetrate Google Trends in more than 60 countries. While organic engagement on social media rivals even global campaigns financed by millions of dollars. How could that be a coincidence? Even crazier, among all the brand ambassadors, only Jungkook consistently brings audiences across demographics, from Gen Z teens to adult professionals. He is not just a young icon, but a generational bridge. And this is something that no marketing strategy can buy. One thing that makes Jungkook's influence feel disruptive to competitors is the way he flips the logic of the industry. The fashion world is usually driven by big brands, down brands dictate style, the public follows. But with Jungkook, the opposite happened. The public followed him, and the brand was forced to adjust. It creates waves from the bottom up. Experts call this the reverse influence dynamic. The example is simple. When Jungkook wore a white tank top at a photo shoot, the item immediately sold out in dozens of countries, even though it was not the main part of the campaign. That is, it is not the product that sells Jungkook, but Jungkook who sells everything around him. That's the level of influence that makes fashion experts call it a marketing anomaly. Something that cannot be repeated with the usual strategy, because its power comes from emotional credibility, not artificial image. And therein lies the startling truth that the industry has been hiding. Jungkook's influence is not the result of chance, but the result of the juxtaposition of three things: authenticity, silence, and public trust. It is not trying to sell, but people feel like buying because they believe. In an interview with Business Korea, one of the trend analysts said, "We live in an era of visual fatigue. Everyone shows up to get noticed." But Jungkook was noticed precisely because he did not try to perform. The paradox is what makes it the new center of gravity in the fashion world. From Seoul to Paris, from New York to Tokyo, everyone now has one visual reference: Jungkook style. A style that doesn't need big logos, doesn't need screaming trends, but just one silent gaze that invites thousands of interpretations. So, If you're asking, what exactly is the shocking truth behind Jungkook's influence on the fashion world, the answer is simple but deep. She does not change fashion from the outside, but from the inside. From the way people look at themselves in the mirror. From how the world has now learned that style is not about who is the most striking, but who is the most honest. Jungkook proves that behind the glamorous spotlights and cameras, there is still room for authenticity, and that is what is most valuable in today's fashion world. Imagine this. At first, it was just a young Korean in his 20s in a shabby denim jacket, standing in front of the camera. No big highlights, no overproduction, just honest expressions, and a few weeks later, the entire global fashion industry was talking about it. From Seoul to Paris, from the runway to streetwear, the name Jungkook is no longer just a singer's identity. It has become a global lifestyle phenomenon. But how can an artist from Asia break through the thick walls of the exclusivity of Western fashion, which so far seemed unshakable? The answer is not as simple as because he is famous. Because if only fame is the key, many world celebrities have tried but failed to achieve the same effect. It's not about the number of followers, it's about cultural relevance. Jungkook unknowingly has created a new visual language, one that everyone can understand, no matter where they are. This phenomenon first made itself felt after her debut as the global face of Calvin Klein. Many thought it was just an ordinary campaign, but it turned out that, behind the scenes, the decision to choose Jungkook was not just about aesthetics. According to one of Calvin Klein's creative executives, they needed someone who could connect the world of high fashion with the authentic energy that was growing in the new generation. And the one name that comes up over and over again at their boardroom? Jungkook. He's not a model, but he has an aura of a model that can't be learned. She is not a fashion influencer, but her influence flows organically. It was from this that the fashion world began to change direction. It's no longer about a star fitting in with a brand, but a brand fitting in with the energy of a star. Once the campaign was launched, social media exploded. But interestingly, people's reactions don't stop at the word cool. They feel connected. There is something in Jungkook's gaze that feels familiar, despite appearing in the super polished photo. It's like a generation that's tired of pretending, a generation that wants to look stylish but still be yourself. And at that point, Jungkook's influence began to break through the walls of elite fashion that had been accessible to only a handful of people. Many fashion experts in Europe say that Jungkook's presence opens a new era of fashion democratization, where the line between luxury and casual is blurred. She can wear torn jeans with a luxurious coat and still look natural. He could appear at the airport in a plain hoodie, but his look was analyzed by Vogue Korea as if it were a runway look. But behind all that, there is a larger cultural factor. South Korea, through the Hallyu wave, has instilled its pop culture influence throughout the world. But Jungkook brought something different. Not just music or drama, but a personal style. In each of its performances, there is a reflection of modern Korean values, discipline, refinement, and the search for a balance between tradition and freedom. As the Western fashion world gets caught up in the image of rebellious youth, Jungkook shows that sobriety can also be sexy. That modesty can be more tempting than rebellion. And from there comes a new global trend: soft power fashion. A wave that does not come with shouts or big claims, but with a consistency that crosses national and linguistic borders. You know what's most interesting? Every time Jungkook appears, the tone of the industry changes. When she appeared with a natural haircut and monochrome clothes, suddenly big brands began to launch clean, minimalist collections. When he combined a leather jacket with a simple necklace, the raw masculine elegance trend emerged in Europe. When she appeared in the denim campaign, the term emotional denim aesthetic appeared again in the Japanese and US fashion media. It all happened without a single official statement from Jungkook. He never said, "This is my style," but the world recognizes him without needing him to speak. It is a form of cultural power that cannot be bought. Even the once skeptical fashion editors now have to admit this new reality. In a special report, the Fashion Post Japan, they wrote, "Jungkook is not just a pop star, he is the living algorithm of fashion of the future." Meaning, everything he touches, from how to walk, how to hold a jacket, to the choice of shoes, becomes a style reference in the digital world. On TikTok, thousands of Jungkook-inspired look-themed videos appear. On Pinterest, the new category K-style minimal masculine continues to rise, dominated by styles inspired directly from Jungkook's photoshoot. Even at Fashion Week, many male models now appear with softer and more expressive body gestures, something that used to be rare on European runways. And of course, the competitors began to sulk. Some American brands that once considered Korea only a secondary market now put Asia at the center of the strategy. They are aware global trends no longer start in New York or Paris, but in Seoul. And who is the most global face of Seoul today? Jungkook. He is not only the face of the campaign, but a symbol of the transformation of the industry. It marks a major shift from exclusive to inclusive fashion. In fact, some analysts say that in the past 10 years, not a single individual has had as much transcontinental influence as himself in the realm of men's fashion. But of course, all major changes always come with a question: will it last, or just a momentary trend? Observers say, this is not a trend, this is a new era. Because Jungkook's influence does not stand above sensation, but above authentic emotional connection. It doesn't sell style, it brings meaning to life from the style itself. And as the fashion world continues to spin in search of a new definition of cool, Jungkook is already one step ahead, proving that honesty is the most powerful form of style ever. From Seoul to Paris, from denim to haute couture, one truth is undeniable. The fashion world is under one big influence, and his name is Jungkook.